start. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Let's bow in. Welcome to the Buddhist Path of Awakening course. And tonight we're beginning to go to work on the famous ninth chapter, as it were. I'm not going to do it directly tonight, but we're coming close. The ninth chapter of the Bodhicharya Avatara, the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. The ninth chapter is both wonderful and very, very difficult. The reasons that it's difficult, the reasons that are given, who knows exactly, but one is that it was delivered to monks who are perhaps more sophisticated than we. Another reason is that it was delivered in the 8th century, these teachings, and Shantideva is addressing schools of both Buddhism and non-Buddhist schools, sort of talking about how the Buddhist view differs from them, and we're not familiar with them, and that makes it quite difficult. So what we're going to do tonight, since the 9th chapter is all about wisdom, which is really about prajnaparamita, Shunyata, absolute reality. What we're going to do is we're going to start out tonight by working our way through a part of a chapter in Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, in which he talked about the doctrine of Shunyata, especially as it was presented by the Buddha in the Heart Sutra. And then next week, so I'm going to be doing that tonight. Next week, Michael is going to present selected stanzas from the 9th chapter that we hope will be more workable. And I'm going to be sending them out to you, I think, probably tomorrow, a list of those stanzas for you can read the whole chapter, but especially to focus on those particular stanzas that Michael will be explicating next week. So I thought tonight we would start by chanting together the Heart Sutra, since that really is the subject of, or actually what's the subject of tonight's talk is just the pith, the most important section of the Heart Sutra, but we'll chant the whole thing and talk about it. So I'm going to put it up on screen, and let's go back to audience view, gallery view, and we'll all chant together. Hold on a second. Pardon the slightly crude copy of this, the Heart Sutra. It just didn't come out well as a PDF. It's a little slanted. There, is that readable? Somebody? Barry, Michael?
It is for me.
How about Michael?
On smaller,
it is readable.
On smaller
Okay.
devices, it might not be so great.
Okay, and we chant this the same way we chant the lineage chant, meaning monosyllabically. This is what Trungpa Rinpoche taught us to do. So I'll do the gong, and we can all, and I'll mute all.
Also,
and we'll all chant together.
The pace changes.
What do you mean the pace changes, Barry?
Normally, as you do this, it starts slowly and then speeds up.
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Well, it does in the very beginning. We start out a little bit slowly, the first sentence or so. And here we go. I'll chant the title alone. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with the gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha Bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing profound prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes just the profound prajnaparamita addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Sattva Mahasattva said to Venerable Shariputra, Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes just the profound prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, and consciousness are emptiness. The Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. No characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity, no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Putra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu, no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, suffering, no origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, attainment and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas no attainment, they abide by means of prajnaparamita. There is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times means of prajnaparamita fully awaken, surpassable through complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The prajnaparamita is said in this way: Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Svaha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, trained in the profound prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One rose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Sattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is one should practice profound prajnaparamita, just as you have taught. All the Tathagatas will rejoice when the Blessed had said this. Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly, world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Nice to hear that again. We haven't done that in a long time. So the chapter in Cutting Through is primarily about the central doctrine that's presented in the Heart Sutra. And Trungpa Rinpoche took the Heart Sutra as the sort of the organizing principle for that chapter. Oh, thank you, Henry. And I'm just going to say a few words about the Heart Sutra in general. It was given by the Buddha at Rajagriha. Rajagriha is an area outside of what is now Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha achieved enlightenment. You can go there today. And he gave it on what's called Vulture Peak Mountain. You might be a little disappointed when you see what Vulture Peak Mountain is. It's kind of a sort of a large, bare bump. It's more than a bump. It's, it has a winding road that goes up it, lined with beggars who are asking for alms. And I went up it years ago, I think it was 1981. And at the top, there's a small terrace. When I say small, it's maybe 30 by 30, with a very low stone wall around it. And when I got to that terrace, it was pretty much empty. There was hardly anyone there. So I sat down and chanted the Heart Sutra. That's what I heard. And the Buddha supposedly gave this teaching to his monks and perhaps nuns 2,600 years ago at that point on the top of Vulture Peak Mountain. Hold on a second. Oh, so, yeah, you had photos, didn't you, Michael and Sue, of Vulture Peak Mountain?
I did, and your description is pretty accurate. I'm trying to see if I can find it.
Okay, if you can, let us know. So this was a teaching that his students had never heard before. Supposedly, most of his students, many of them, were Hinayanists, and they were practicing Hinayana meditation and studying the Hinayana doctrine of the elements, which we're going to be talking about tonight, the 5 skandhas, the 12 ayatanas, the 18 dhatus, the 12 nidanas. These were meant to be the elements of reality. And supposedly, the story goes that when some of these students heard this doctrine of emptiness, which denied even the existence of these elements of reality, they had heart attacks. That's the story. And in fact, sometimes the Heart Sutra is called the Heart Attack Sutra, right? Whether or not that happened, who knows? And so we're going to look tonight a bit, I hope, if I can manage it. What's happening is that, you see, the Hinayanists this is up to this point, these are the Buddha's students, conceived of the universe as being made up of dharmas. Dharmas are like atoms. And there were primarily 3 kinds of atoms, basically 2, but we'll mention the third. Atoms of matter that go to make up, matter and computer and everything else, and atoms of mind, mental experiences. In addition, there was a third class that's sort of indeterminate, which I don't know anybody who's ever been able to figure out what they're supposed to be. There are very few of them. The bulk of them are matter and mind. And each of the Hinayana schools that developed after the Buddha's death had their own set, as it were, of elements, of dharmas. And they had different numbers. So the Sarvastivada school, which is the school that went to Tibet, had 75 elements. And I've given you the list of the 75 elements. And what they constitute are the 5 skandhas: form, feeling, perception. All of those are one dharma apiece. Form, feeling, perception, that's rupa. Feeling is Vedana, samjna, is Vedana, and then there's form, feeling, contact, which I think is samjna, and then there's the 4th skandha is a big collection of mental events, and it's called samskara. And the 5th skanda is vijnana, consciousness. Now, when the emptiness is formed, he's talking about the appearance of some other. So it's the birth of ignorance, the birth of avidya, because suddenly the world splits into other, and that implies the existence of an I, a perceiver of it. This is the beginning of the five skandhas, which are the explanation of ego. And they contain most, not quite all, of the 75 dharmas arranged to describe ego. Now, in addition, you can take all of those 75 dharmas, most of them, and arrange them to describe perception. Perception meaning your ability to see forms, hear sounds, think thoughts, have bodily sensations. And when they are arranged that way, there are three fundamental groups. There are the dharmas of mind, so there is the mind which sees visual objects. There is the organ through which the mind sees it, which is the eye. And then there is the visual object itself. Three dharmas, three things that actually exist, according to the Hinayanists. Three existence, so like atoms of existence. Now, these atoms don't have a very long life. They come into being and pass out of being instantaneously. They say that it's a 60th of a second is the endurance of a dharma. In fact, they say if you were to stack 60 flower petals, one on top of the other, and then drive a pin through all of them, the amount of time it takes for that pin to go through one of those flower petals is the amount of time that a dharma, an experience, a mental experience like the pink of this skin, the sound of this voice that you're hearing, that's the amount of time it endures before it passes away. It appears, it endures for that second, and then it's gone. These are the dharmas. Dharmas are like, you can think of them as atoms of existence that come into being and pass away instantaneously. And this is what, according to the Hinayanists, the world is made up of. The Heart Sutra is denying this. The Heart Sutra says, actually, this is interesting. This is one of the 12 styles of teaching. The Buddha inspires a conversation between the Bodhisattva, the great sattva, the Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, and the monk, the great monk, Shariputra. Avalokiteshvara represents the power of compassion and also of skillful means. Shariputra represents prajna, the scientific seeing that sees reality. And when these two come together, Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra, you get the complete picture of reality that's presented in the Heart Sutra. So, Shariputra asks Avalokiteshvara, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound prajna paramita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the awakened being, sattva means being, great being, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound prajna paramita. Prajna is the ability to see reality, and the paramita means it's transcendent. It's a transcendent virtue. So this is the prajna paramita. There are other paramitas. There's dana paramita, which is the transcendent virtue of generosity. But prajna is the most important. It sees reality. So he says, the son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound prajna paramita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas. He just starts with the five skandhas. He could have picked the 12 ayatanas, the 18 dhatus, and so forth. The 12 ayatanas are just the organ and the object, like the eye and its object. But when you get the 18 dhatus, then you add in mind, and you get the mind of the eye looking through the eye at the object, with the visual object. So should see in this way, but he starts with the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature, and he starts with the first skandha, form, rupa. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, that's the second skandha, perception, formation, and consciousness, those are the remaining skandhas, are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas, you see, all dharmas are included in the 5 skandhas. All dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, and he's saying that because they're empty, they don't have any characteristic of their own. I'm going to come back to this. There is no birth and no cessation. They're not real. They were a wrong idea, he's saying. They were a myth. They aren't born and they don't die. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase because they don't exist. So how can they increase in number or decrease in number? Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. That's the 5 skandhas, all gone. Then, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. So much for the 12 ayatanas, the organ and what the organ sees. And, no I dhatu. Now he's talking about the mind. Up to no mind dhatu. So beginning with the eye, through the nose, tongue, body, ear, and mind, all the way up. Now we've got the 18 dhatus, the whole idea of perception. The dharmas which made up these different things are he's saying they don't exist. They were a myth. They were just an idea. Up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu. He's talking about mind consciousness altogether. No ignorance. Now, we were told that there's ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. Now he's talking about the 12 nidanas, which start the chain of causality, which start with ignorance, and go from there to samskara and on and end with old age and death. So he says, no ignorant, and I've given you the list of them too in your email. No end of old age and death. And now we get the 4 truths. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path. There go the 4 noble truths. They don't exist. They were myths. They were a useful way to take things for people to get onto the path. But now we're moving up to a much higher and more sophisticated reality, the reality of emptiness, the reality of the prajnaparamita. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. There it is again. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, because they don't even exist themselves, they abide by means of prajnaparamita. This is what is the life force, prajnaparamita, Shunyata. Fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Om, gone, gone, completely gone, utterly completely gone, meaning any notion of existence of anything. Awake, so be it. Swaha, hurrah, eureka. That's the mantra. Om gate gate, om gone, gone, paragate, completely gone, parasamgate, utterly completely gone. Awake, so be it. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound prajnaparamita. And this is still Avalokiteshvara teaching him. Now the Buddha hasn't said a word. This is one of the 12 styles of the Buddha teaching. He inspires his students to do it. So it says, then the Buddha, the Blessed One, arose from that samadhi. He was in the samadhi of profound illumination, and praised, where is it? And praised the words of the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajna Paramita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas, the ones who have gone beyond to enlightenment, will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly, and the world, the whole world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas. Gandharvas are actually hungry ghosts, but they are musicians as well, and they play music. Rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. So now what we're going to do is we're going to examine the basic idea of Shunyata as it's presented here. And I've just got to find my notes. Oh, there it is. One thing to note, and you'll come across this, is that one of the teachings of the Buddha is the teaching of the 12 nidanas, which is also called the teaching of pratitya samutpada, not so easy to say, which means dependent co-origination. What it means is that everything that arises with other things, and they're all interdependent. It's like when you're looking at this image on your TV, on your computer screen, and there's the black of this sweater and the white of this shirt and the pink of this flesh and the sound of this voice, and all that is all arising together in dependence on each other. Nothing arises independently. Nothing has its own independent existence. Everything is part of this constantly shifting, constantly changing matrix. This is one of the definitions of Shunyata, emptiness. Shunyata means it doesn't have any true existence. It doesn't have its own being. We think, sure, things have their own being. This mouse is, has its own being. This person has its own being. My computer has its own being. They are all, in the present moment, arising as visual, auditory, sometimes olfactory and gustatory and tactile experiences and mental independence on each other. And none of them has its own being. They are all in this matrix, constantly changing matrix, instant by instant. Nothing endures even for a split second, like the Hinayanists thought. They thought for a 60th of a second. It's all, as soon as there's an appearance, it's gone. So there is no true existence of anything, and that's what this is saying. Now let's look at the text, and we're just going to examine what's called the four-limbed statement about form, because this then is applied to everything else, to every other dharma, every other thing which the Hinayanists took to actually exist, this four-limbed statement. So it says, form is empty, emptiness is, that's one. Emptiness is form, that's two. Emptiness is no other than form, that's three. Form is no other than emptiness, that's four. That's the four-limbed statement, and it applies to every dharma. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas, all the things that we take to experience are emptiness. There is no birth and no cessation because nothing exists to be born. No impurity and no purity because there is nothing that exists to be pure or impure, and so forth. So form is empty, but what is it empty of? It's empty of our preconceptions, our judgments. It is what is, in the absence of our own personal interpretations of it, without any understanding that we have to apply. It's constant presentation. But emptiness is also form. So it's empty, you see, it's empty of anything we can say about it. This is the first one. It's empty of any concept that we can put onto it. It exists, it doesn't exist, it's big, it's little, it's short, it's long, it endures, it doesn't endure, who knows what. None of those apply. Why? Because you can't find it to apply them to. It's already gone. The instant you try to apply something, boom, it's gone. It's already changed, like these words. Find them. They're gone. This gesture, all of it, everything we experience is in constant flux. So it's empty of any concepts that we can put on it, any personal interpretations, because that's what concepts always are. When we put a concept on it, we say, ooh, that's a table, I could use that. Ooh, that's ugly, I don't like that. Ooh, that tastes good, I could eat that. And so forth. They're all just dreams, creations, stories, like television dramas that we get caught up in. And this is what the whole Heart Sutra is saying. If you want to live these fantasies, be my guest. But wake up. That's what it's asking us to do. Wake up to the fact that none of this is real. And then, but emptiness is also form. We thought we understood something important. Form absent our preconceptions. That was what we thought we had understood in the first pass. Form exists without any labels or concepts that we could put on it, good or bad, sweet, sour, names, table, chair, person. But he says, but emptiness is also a concept, and so a form. If we could turn emptiness into a philosophy and go around looking for emptiness and trying to live emptiness, things clothed in the concept of emptiness, he says that would be too easy. Concluding that everything is simply what is, an escape, a way of comforting ourselves. We have to actually feel things as they are, the isness of things. This is what he's recommending. This is the way we live our lives, to feel things, their isness, without a conceptual veil of any kind, especially a philosophical veil of emptiness. This is an accurate way of seeing the world. So first, we wipe away all our heavy preconceptions, our judgments. We say, my idea that that's a pretty embroidered table over there, it's just my idea. You wipe it away. We wipe away even the subtleties of words such as empty, which is very philosophical and going to teach us something. Leaving us nowhere, completely with what is, with what is. So finally, we have come to the conclusion that form is just form. This piece of paper, these glasses, whatever, and emptiness is just emptiness. Form is no other than emptiness. This is the last two statements. And emptiness is no other than form. That's the fourth. They are indivisible. Emptiness and form are indivisible. Form is what emptiness is, and emptiness is what form is. Things live and move in the instant, devoid of the labels that we put on them. We can point to them. We can say, oh, that's a pair of glasses. We could even write it on a piece of paper and Scotch tape it. But it's just a name. Here's the reality. And you see it instant by instant. So he says, we see that looking for beauty or philosophical meaning to life is merely a way of justifying ourselves, saying that things are not so bad as we think they are. And then I remember him saying, they are as bad as we think they are. Yeah. He says, form is form, emptiness is emptiness, meaning these things all exist independently of any names that we put on them. Things are just what they are, and we do not have to try to see them in the light of some profundity. Finally, we come down to earth. We see things as they are. It's so simple. This does not mean having inspired mystical vision, but things are seen as they are in their own qualities. This flesh, this voice, all of it. So we're really seeing the world naked, stripped of not only names, but of judgments of all kind. Good, bad, purposeful. So Shunyata in this case is the complete absence of even the form is empty, and emptiness is form conceptualization. It is just directly perceiving things literally as they are in their own right. It's very groundless. We have no idea of being right or wrong. We're just awake, aware. We don't, not desiring higher consciousness or significance or profundity. Just here we are, awake, with our human awakeness. The Shunyata experience involves not dwelling on anything, not distinguishing between this and that. It involves being suspended nowhere. We're not going to some better place. We're not going to become Buddhas, Buddhahood, and then have all the world bowing down at our feet. None of that. If we see things as they are, then we don't have to interpret or analyze them further. We don't need to try to understand things by imposing spiritual experience or philosophical ideas upon them. How many people through the ages have been imposing or trying to impose a philosophical understanding on life, on the world? He says, just do what you do completely, fully. To do so is to be a rishi. A rishi is like a sage. It's a Sanskrit word. An honest, truthful person. The Buddha was a Maharishi, a great rishi, a great, simple, direct knower, not trying to be truthful, but simply he was true in his open state. This is the view of Madhyamaka, or the middle way of Nagarjuna. It's an experiential reality which can never be accurately described because words simply are not the experience. They just point to it. But this is true of all words. I mean, you could write the two words computer screen on a piece of paper and scotch tape them to your screen. And they aren't the screen. They're just words, pointers. He says, words are simply not the experience. In fact, it is dubious that one can even speak of experiencing reality, since this would imply a separation between the experiencer and the experience. You can't even experience reality. You can't say, oh, now I'm experiencing reality. Then you'd be knowing something, you'd be labeling something. And finally, it is questionable whether one can even speak of reality for the same reason. We're left nowhere. We can't even talk about what's real. Who's the judge to distinguish between falsity and reality? Not me, not you. There is nobody. There's just this constant arising and passing of phenomena. So the Madhyamaka school speaks of as it is, ta-ta-ta. Nagarjuna took the arguments of others, individuals, schools of thought, and reduced them to absurdity. And I've given one example, the idea of the Tirtaka, the person who he's arguing with, says, you have to admit that things have beginnings and ends, and there are things that do that. And Nagarjuna replies, well, if things have beginnings and ends, then you must concede that there is a beginning to the beginning. And the Tirtaka, who's arguing with him, says, okay, conceded. And then Nagarjuna says, and if there's a beginning to the beginning, well, then you must agree that there's a beginning to the beginning of the beginning. And you can see where that goes. Reductio ad absurdum. Or a famous one is cause and effect. The Tirtaka means sort of heretic, means the non-Buddhist, argues that there are causes which produce effects. Nagarjuna responds, well, if you assert that there are causes which produce effects, then you must agree that the cause either has to come before the effect, at the same time as the effect, or after the effect. Those are the only three possibilities, temporally. The Tirtaka says, okay, granted. What else is he going to say? That's true. It has to come before, simultaneously with, or afterwards. Well, Nagarjuna says, for the cause to come after the effect is absurd. Then it couldn't produce the effect. Tirtaka says, agreed. And Nagarjuna says, and if the cause came at the same time as the effect, how could you say which produced which? Because they're simultaneous. And the Tirtaka has to agree. And if the cause comes before the effect, how can it produce the effect? It has no contact with it. And the Tirtaka might say, well, part of the cause has contact with the effect, and part of it does not. What Nagarjuna would say is, then you got two causes. One that has no contact with the effect, you can't produce it, and one that is simultaneous with the effect, arises at the same time, and how can you tell which is which? So there are all these arguments, lots of them, and we could do a course actually where we go through them. They're collected in a famous book by Nagarjuna called The Root Verses on the Middle Way, Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Karika means verses, Madhyamaka means middle way, and Mula means root. And they're lots of fun to go through these arguments. And then the Tibetans will stand and face each other and go through these arguments. And one person will play the Tirtaka, and one person will play the Madhyamaka, and they go like this. They go wham like this. And there are such things as causes and effects. And the other guy goes wham like this. Well, if you assert that there are causes and effects, and they stand about 10 or 15 feet apart doing this, and go through these arguments. It's like it would be fun to actually see some monks doing that. So basically, what Nagarjuna was doing was saying that all conceptualization is just fictions, dreams, stories that we tell. This, as it unfolds indescribably, is reality. You can describe it if you wish, but the reality is beyond description. Description is just an overlay, like Scotch taping the word table to a table. He says, talks about eternalism. Madhyamakas grouped all other schools into three categories: the nihilists, the eternalists, and the atomists. The atomists are basically the Hinayana schools, who propose that everything is made up of dharmas, right? Material dharmas, mental dharmas, and then there's a third class which no one can ever understand, dharmas that are indeterminate. And then eternalists are theists, people who believe in some sort of eternal substance that goes on, forever, like God, or the soul, or Atman, whatever it might be. And nihilists, we know what nihilists are, they deny all meaning. So he says, we can never meet our God or find our soul. That's what Buddhists say. And as for nihilism, where everything is generated out of nothingness, mystery, the unknowable, a universe without origin or starting point, an unknowable reality, somehow beyond apparent phenomena. No real explanation for the universe. A mystery which cannot be known, relied upon and dwelt upon as the answer. And for those of you who have read any of the French existentialists, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, this sounds so familiar. And this is, I loved Albert Camus when I was in high school and read his books. And it was a nihilist. And he, in fact, in one of his books, he said, nihilism is so useless that I, Albert Camus, am going to adopt belief in God, just provisionally, just sort of to get through my life. I don't really believe in God, but it's easier to do that than to deny belief in God, because then where are you left? You have no values, no direction, no place to go. That was Albert Camus in one of his books. I can't remember, The Stranger or one of the others. So these are the three possibilities: eternalism, nihilism, and atomism. He says we can never meet our God or find our soul. And as for nihilism, everything is generated out of nothingness. It's mystery, unknowable, a universe without origin or starting point, an unknowable reality, somehow beyond apparent phenomena, beyond all, what we've got here, our hands and our stuff. No real explanation for the universe, a mystery which can't be known. The idea that there is no answer is relied upon and dwelt upon as the answer. And it's a very sad and depressing philosophy of life, nihilism. And it produces fatalism, like everything is going to be what it's going to be. There is a continual cause and effect which springs from the mystery of nothingness, and which is meaningless. Everything is left to this mystery. We can't figure it out. He says the mystery becomes our conceptual answer, the thing we don't know, the meaning of life, the origin of the universe, the key to happiness. We name this mystery God, the soul, Atman, Brahman, and even Shunyata, in a perversion of what Shunyata really is. The Hinayana schools fell into this error. They saw impermanence as the great mystery. One cannot see impermanence itself, but only its manifestation in form, momentary atoms of material and mind making up all phenomena. So Hinayana meditation is twofold when you do Hinayana meditation. First is the contemplation of the many aspects of impermanence, birth, growth, decay, and death of all of these different atoms of different things. There's no permanent substance or solid thing at all from the Hinayana point of view. Everything is made up of atoms which are disappearing every 60th of a second. But still, what he says is this approach errs in the idea of real entities, these atoms, existing relative to each other, however momentarily, for however short a time. The Madhyamaka point of view, these three misconceptions of reality are virtually inescapable as long as one searches for an answer to an assumed question. Belief in anything is simply a way of labeling the mystery. And this is the key. As long as we are searching for an answer to be given to us, then we're looking for a belief in whatever. And it's just a way of labeling the mystery. You can never really find the answer. There is no answer. I remember Jim Rinpoche screaming that at us, there is no answer. These three misconceptions of reality are virtually inescapable as long as one searches for an answer to an assumed question. You're going to come up with one of them. Theism, which is eternalism, nihilism, everything's meaningless, like Albert Camus. Albert Camus, he said in one of his books, everything is meaningless, but you can't live that way. So let's live as though there were things that had meaning. We'll adopt a meaningful sort of schema. But we know that at the end, when we die, it's going to evaporate. It doesn't really exist. It was a fiction all along, but it's just a way of getting through life. That's what Camus said. Some belief, some system, just a way of getting through life. Then there's Yogacara, the mind-only school, which basically posited that mind is the intelligence, that the mystery that we're looking to find is mind, intelligence. And they posit the union of intelligence and phenomena. There's no individual knower. Rather, everything is self-known. We're right here. The space is knowingness. Everything is known within it. It's glowing. And he says there's only, with the Yogacharans, Chittamatrans, they're called sometimes, Chitta means mind, Matra means only. It's another name for Yogacharans. There's only one mind, which is self-luminous cognition, this stuff. Thoughts and emotions and people and trees are aspects of it. This school is also called Chittamatra. This is the first Buddhist school to transcend the division between knower and known. There is no knower and known. Everything is self-known in space. So confusion and suffering spring from the mistaken belief in an individual knower, according to the Yogacharans. The confused person is caught in a constant action-reaction situation involving knower and known. The enlightened person knows this split is an error, that all is merely the play of the mind, the one mind, without dualism. There is no knower and known. There is no split. Everything is self-known, according to this school. Nagarjuna contested the very existence of mind altogether. Nagarjuna being the great Madhyamakan, middle way. His conclusions are summed up in the principle of non-dwelling, that any philosophical view could be refuted, that one must not dwell upon any answer or description of reality, including the notion of one mind. Even to say that non-dwelling is the answer is delusory. There is no answer, and I hear Trungpa Rinpoche shouting it. There is no answer. So where does that leave us? Let's see here, we got 28. Ooh, we're getting late. Okay. So Madhyamaka says of the Yogacara school, the mind-only school, in order to say that mind exists or that everything is the play of one mind, and all of this is mind, and that every, this and the voice and all of that is just, it's play, there must be someone watching the mind, the knower of mind, who vouches for its existence. So that's the flaw. Thus, the whole of Yogacara is necessarily a theory on the part of this watcher. But according to the Yogacharan's own philosophy of self-luminous cognition, there is no watcher. Subjective thoughts about an object are delusive, there being no subject or object, but only the one mind, which in all of this is just the play of it. But who knows that? That's the flaw. Therefore, it is impossible to state that the one mind exists, because who is stating it? There's only the one mind. Suddenly you got two minds. You got the one mind and you got the mind that knows about the one mind. That doesn't work. It says, by the Yogacharan's own admission, there is no one to know that the one mind exists. So what can we say? Once we've taken away this preconception of the existence of mind and reality, then situations emerge clearly. This is the emergence of intelligence that we can all experience. There is no one to watch, no one to know anything. It's just this. Reality just is, here and now. And this is what is meant by the term Shunyata. That's wild. Reality just is. Through this insight, the watcher which separates from the world is removed. You have to give up all desire to know, to understand, to discover deeper meaning. It's already here in this. So how does confusion, samsara, happen? According to the Madhyamikas, whenever a perception of form occurs, here's that computer screen, there is an immediate reaction of fascination and uncertainty on the part of the implied perceiver of the form. Ooh, what am I going to see? This reaction is almost instantaneous, takes a fraction of a second, and then we give the thing a name. Oh, it's going to entertain me. It's a computer screen. With name comes concept, so we are no longer able to see the thing as it is, things as they are. There is a conceptual padding, a filter. This is the way confusion develops. A veil between us and the object. That's a very useful computer screen. I like it. And that's the concept. So goodbye to panoramic awareness in the presence of the meditative state. We are unable to see things as they are, but we see them through the veils of name and concept. And then he says, so Shunyata is not merely awareness of what we are and how we are in relation to such and such an object, but rather it is clarity which transcends conceptual padding and unnecessary confusions. This is what Shunyata is. It's utter simplicity. It's complete clarity, which we all have. It's freedom from subject and object, freedom from this and that. It involves letting go of the desire for an answer. What remains is open space, the absence of this and that dichotomy. This is what is meant by the middle way of Madhyamaka. You have to start with the Hinayana discipline and technique, but then at some point, that discipline and technique of the Hinayana has to fall away into this utterly effortless, simple awareness beyond even being noticed as awareness. He says the Hinayana stage would be unnecessary, except that we can't accept such simplicity that Shunyata is offering us. We have to learn to unlearn. We're undoing the ego with its constant imperative for self-improvement. We always want to improve ourselves. If only I could blah, 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 then I'd be happy, I'd be enlightened, I'd be a Buddha, a Tathagata. Self-improvement. It says, first we learn to deal with neurotic thoughts and emotions. Then false concepts are removed through the understanding of emptiness, openness. Shunyata in Sanskrit literally means void or emptiness, space, the absence of all conceptual attitudes, all, including that one. So Nagarjuna says in his commentary of Madhyamaka, just as the sun dispels darkness, the perfect sage has conquered the false habits of mind. He does not see mind or thought derived from mind. And then the Heart Sutra ends with the great spell or the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, which is known as truth, for there is no deception. And what he says here, Trungpa Rinpoche, the potency of this mantra comes not from some imagined mystical or magical power of the words, but rather from their meaning. This is because in the beginning we must develop a confidence in our understanding. Right here, this. Clearing out all preconceptions, which include nihilism, eternalism, beliefs like theism, all of this has to be jettisoned. And when a person is completely exposed, fully unclothed, fully unmasked, completely naked, he, she sees the power of the word. When the basic, absolute, ultimate hypocrisy has been unmasked, then one really begins to see the jewel shining in its brightness, the energetic, living quality of openness, the living quality of surrender. Surrender to what? To this, to not wanting to make it more. Making a decision here. He says, one would have thought that instead of saying Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva, this mantra would say something about Shunyata, but it doesn't. It says gone, gone, gone beyond, completely gone. That's us. This is stronger than saying something about Shunyata, which would be an answer of some kind, because that might imply a philosophical interpretation, he says. But this mantra is about what lies beyond philosophy. The first gate means that form is empty. All of this is empty of our conceptualizations. The second gate is that emptiness of conceptualization can become a trip in itself, a philosophy, a form. Paragate, gone beyond, completely exposed, stripped of it all. So now form is form and emptiness is just emptiness. Parasamgate, completely gone beyond. Bodhi, awake, swaha, so be it. What an injunction to utter simplicity. Just waking up to what we already have. This awareness, this world. Giving up the desire for self-improvement, greater profundity, which leads us into nothing but confusion, according to these teachings. It's really gorgeous, if you ask me. So we could have a discussion. I really recommend going back and reading that chapter about every year or 2 or 3. Question and answer is pretty good too. This is the first question. I'll just read it to you. What is the place of desire? Now, I read that question and I thought, that's not such a great question, given everything you've been talking about with the profundity of Shunyata. Yeah. He says, desire is wanting the next thing. Shunyata replaces desire, wanting the next thing, as though you had arrived at another planet with different air, or a place without oxygen at all. So Shunyata provides a new atmosphere, a new environment, which will not support clinging or grasping. Okay, you ready for this? Ready to live this way? Therefore, the experience of Shunyata also makes impossible the planting of the seed of karma, which is why it is said that Shunyata is that which gives birth to all the Buddhas. Karma has to do with wanting something in the future, or not wanting it, wanting to avoid it. That was a pretty good answer for what I thought was going to be a loser of a question. What is the place of desire? Michael, it's kind of a hard act to follow, isn't it?
Yes, but please do keep it all in mind, because it is really what everything Shantideva says in the next chapter is going toward, what he's trying to point to.
This is the description of absolute reality. There's also relative reality. But relative reality is just words, pointers, things that might be sort of true in the moment, but not really true. This is what's really true, and it's beyond words.
True.
That's the trip. Yeah.
This may be a oversimplification, but is what you're saying that Shunyata is essentially the as it is?
The what?
The phrase that's used, that seeing things as they are, as it is, the simple, unadulterated, isolated down to as it is that what you just described? Did I hear it correctly?
Yeah. It's so simple. I remember Trungpa Rinpoche again saying, it's so simple. That's why nobody gets it. Remember that, Michael? Yeah. Ed.
Yes. I guess when we meditate, we try to rest in present awareness. Now, isn't that a concept? How it attempts maybe to describe shunyata and put a limit around it somehow, but as a human, I mean that's kind of like maybe as close as we can get. I don't know how the two would relate to each other.
Awareness is here, now. Is really what we're doing when we practice meditation is we're coming back to it from thought and acknowledging it, that it's so simple, that it's who we actually are. Even that is saying too much. What do you think, Michael?
I think words like conceptual awareness, that's just pointing to something. The experience is what the experience is. So the words are just a reminder or a pointer, but they're not the experience itself.
Now, the words are the path. They're the path element that directs us back to relaxing into our Buddha nature. Problem is, we've got this habit of saying, I want something more than this. So somebody had their hand up. Henry? Someone over here? No?
I guess I'll say something. I don't know what the question really is though, but I remember very, very young, um, I would experience pretty, like graphic, violent experiences with my father. And when they were done, it would be like I was shell shocked or something, and it would be like silence, nothing, and it would be shunyata, which I didn't know. But I feel like those were really early experiences of shunyata. And there was nothing ever to do to like carry the story forward. I would have to wait and see if there was some impulse, like, what do you do? Do you go get like a cup of tea, or like, what do you do? And it was really challenging because it disrupted I was holding my breath, so now I'm not speaking well. It disrupted my ability to identify. So I wasn't identifying with gender or anything like that. I think I'm nervous. That's why I'm sitting, my voice is like this. And I could not figure out how people had these wants and paths that they were moving forward with. At like an early age, I was trying to look at people and understand what was like, how did they know that they wanted that? How did they know that they needed to go towards this, that, and the other? So I understand now obviously the value of it, but I do think it's kind of dangerous to have these awarenesses too young. because of the disruption that can happen.
The,
Um,
the what
the-
can happen?
the disruption that can happen in how you're going to be relating to reality if everybody else is identifying in a Western way, if that makes sense. And I remember always thinking, I've already experienced the worst. It can only go up from here. So I did want more because I figured that I wanted to get away from Shunyata. So I was always trying to get away from Shunyata.
How old were you?
Oh, young, 3, 4, and then it continued. And I was
Too young.
old, 3, 4, then 8, 9, then the rest of my life, and then all the way until the right before the pandemic. That was the last time. And he hadn't even seen me in a long time. I think he still thought I was 12 or something. But anyway, it was kind of heartbreaking because when I realized what everybody was talking about with Shunyata, I'm like, I've been experiencing this my whole life. I've been trying to get something else going other than Shunyata. And then I finally stopped and I stopped driving towards things. And my life started actually like blossoming almost with very little effort because it's like I really couldn't get past that baseline. And I just had to give up doing what most of my peers were doing because just wasn't happening. It just wasn't going to happen. So that's that part. But then I started I have a very strong desire function, but it wasn't desiring what most people desire. And the last maybe 5 years, I've used it spiritually to sublimate it for different things like creative work, for spiritual practice. And I'm reading a book now that I think is really good. It's by Mark Epstein, and it's called Opening to Desire, or Open to Desire, I forget the title. And he's talking about desire, using it to come up against the gap that desire inevitably presents, where now you're in a sense of lack again, and using, I guess it's tantric, but it's using it to actually, I don't know if it would accelerate awakening, but you can absolutely use your desire for awakening if it's coming from a deep enough place. I experience that as being true, and I like how he writes about it. So I don't love negating desire altogether, because if I really did that, I probably wouldn't be alive. You know, I have a strong spiritual desire, and that's very important. And I just think it needs to be specified how we're talking about certain things, because we can misunderstand them as Westerners. And I would hate for somebody, like I've been in states where I negated desire, and it shut me down so badly. I don't think it was healthy. And it was good for me to see that and know that was beyond a boundary for me. But I do think there are other ways to use desire spiritually that's healthy, you know, in terms of relating to other human beings. We're going to be here relating to other humans.
Well, Henry,
Yeah.
Henry, first of all, a couple things to say. One is that Trungpa Rinpoche in Tibet, he wasn't even taught to meditate until he was 9 years old. They had him sort of sit as though he were meditating, but he wasn't really, because they don't feel that a child has the necessary development yet to begin meditating. You have to have a healthy ego form before you can begin to undo it. And it takes about the first 9 years. A 3-year-old, forget it. You know, they don't begin to have the apparatus necessary to be able to do that. The second thing is, you're describing traumatization.
Sure.
I mean, and that has to be dealt with, which I think you've been doing a lot in your life, from what little I understand and what you've told me.
Yes. Well, that I'm fortunate because it opened up spiritual insight. Those early experiences opened up like higher guidance or something like that, some kind of parental guidance, which was very, like, it raised me above my body to see what's going on, if that makes sense. But I don't know if that's exactly good. So yeah, I've done a lot of very specific, like I was very interested in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. and self-actualization. So it's really focused on that end. And I really went down the self-improvement or development aspect of things until I reached an end of that. And then everything started getting stripped back because of studying more Eastern spirituality. So yeah, I did have to develop an ego structure to be dismantled, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
thank
anyway,
you.
there's, okay, sorry. Sorry, I'm taking up too much time here.
It's okay. I think you've got a lot to deal with. There's a lot of damage that was done to you that shouldn't have been, and that isn't really, and that you've been dealing with for a lot of years, probably very well.
I feel okay. And thanks to you all too for that.
I'm really glad you're here. Thank you.
I also like what you said about some of these things, some care needs to be taken, and how some of these words and concepts might be interpreted, like in your case, emptiness. And I think this is good to keep in mind. Like compassion is something that's easily misunderstood, for instance.
Anybody else?
Vicky. Oh, you're not muted, but we can't hear you, Vicky. Something's wrong. Oops. Maybe she'll come back.
On the interim, Judith.
John, that was an absolutely thrilling presentation for me that you just gave. I mean, words just point to it, but I had a feeling of really experiencing it while you were speaking. It really became so clear. I hope it doesn't cloud over again. It was beautiful. Thank you. Just without that interpretation, I don't think I'd get it. It was really great. Thank you.
There was something you don't get, is it? Okay, Carolyn?
Oh, thank you. That was so deep, John. I appreciated the PDFs being sent. I really also appreciate what Henry said. I cannot pull the words out and put them in my words, but Henry, you addressed some of my concerns about being in this world with people who don't aspire to what we're aspiring to, perhaps, or many other people are. So yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
Indeed. Shini.
Yeah, I also want to respond to Henry's sharing. I remember reading in maybe Mingyur Rinpoche's book, where he talked about a Western student having a Shunyata experience at around age of 9 or 8. And she was laying down on the beach like with her friends, and suddenly she had a feeling that everything is empty and unreal. And she totally freaked out. And later on, she kind of buried that experience within herself and not mentioning that to anyone, because she just felt that it's so weird and out of place and no one feel the same. with her. And later on, when she became a Buddhist in maybe like 30s or 40s, she found that some other people have the same experience like her, that they had the Shunyata experience when they were too young to process that. So I don't think you're alone in that experience. And also, I just want to share a quote that I read yesterday from Tuku Ujun's book, As It Is. So a student asked the question, how does a yogi transcend the experience of solidified reality? Rinpoche, that which perceives everything is mind. Mind is empty. Any appearance, any perception is a personal experience occurring within our own mind. It is not something other out there. Personal perception is empty because mind is empty. But doesn't this seem to be in total contradiction to how we perceive things? This thing here, Rinpoche knocks on the table. Doesn't it seem real and solid? We feel it to be a real thing that we experience, so much so that the emptiness of personal experience and the actuality of solid matter seem to be in total conflict. Everything seems solid. However, it actually is not. For something to be ultimately real, it should possess the 7 indestructible qualities. The 7 Vajra qualities are being uncuttable, indestructible, true, solid, firm, completely unobstructable, and completely undefeatable. No perceivable thing possesses these qualities. Although phenomena are empty, they do appear. Although they appear, they are still empty. Otherwise, it would be impossible to destroy things. If they were real, they would be indestructible. Nothing is like that. So I just find it really resonate with our discussion.
Isn't he terrific? So religion. He was a great teacher. He visited here in Boulder briefly. He met Trungpa Rinpoche. Talked. He has wonderful sons. Sakni Rinpoche, Mingyo Rinpoche, Chukidima Rinpoche. There's a 4th one I don't know about. Or he's passed now. There are a number of Trungpa Rinpoche students who went after Trungpa Rinpoche's death and became students of Tuku Ujun.
I'm just going to say something to Henry also. I think what you're describing in your path is that if we're capable to connect with our natural state of mind, there's a self-righting, self-healing tendency that just develops naturally, because that is our true being. And I think, the way you've worked with the situations you're describing, and, it's absolutely true that for a young child, there has to be a sense of safety for it not to be traumatic. And, but that you've been able to work with it in the way that you have is really quite a testament.
Indeed. Shall we say the closing chants? I think it's time. Don, you here? I'll put them up on the screen. Quote from As It Is, Chinese saying, Volume 2. Both volumes are excellent. They are. Okay. Here comes the closing chant.
We'll close with a prayer for peace and with a dedication of merit earned by our practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
That was
for
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Joe.